Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're going to talk with somebody who has truly an amazing journey and what he's done in his life, how he's overcome challenges, how he now focuses on technology and helping startups move their companies along. But a lot of this right here came from his challenge and challenges. And we're going to look, everybody has a story. Wait till you hear this one. Jackson Pleis is with us again today. Welcome back. How you doing?
Thanks. Wonderful. I've been really busy. Been hectic, but
Yeah,
wonderful.
we got together last time. You shared how you've been through a bunch of different injuries, a bunch of different challenges in your life. And your the first injury that you sustained really was kind of charting your future in terms of technology. Can you share
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. It's amazing. I don't remember this because I was, I believe, 2 years old or something like that. My father was playing with me and hit my head against the corner of a wall and split my head open. It was my first surgical thing in my life. And a little bit later, I got the chicken pox, which is a virus that is contagious and you get as a child once, and then you build an immune system around it and platelets and things like that. But it just so happened that one of the chicken pox left a scar, and that scar is right on my forehead above the scar. And so you can see it actually represents like an eye,
Gotcha.
kind of a crude eye,
Like the third eye, right?
like a third eye, which is like a sign of wisdom and things to come. And in fact, there's a
Hmm.
story called One Piece, and it was written by a man out of Japan, Ichiro Oda, and it's been playing for 25 years. It's a wonderful, wonderful story. It's about people, real people, Blackbeard, and some of these characters that have existed through the lifespan of the planet and the human race as we know it since history has been recorded. And also it predicts things to come, such as like the doomsday iceberg in Antarctica that could break off any moment and raise sea levels by a substantial amount, which puts Japan at risk, for flooding and things like that. It's just, yeah, and everywhere, all over the world, right? And so when I was recovering from this most recent surgeries, I watched the whole thing, and I love it, and I'm obsessed and with the stories, and I'm so excited to see how the story turns out, and they have such big plans for the future with like remakes of the animation and the live action series and all of these things, and it's like I grew up with some kids that just remind me of some of the characters. It's just wonderful. And I have a cat, also another story, Avatar, The Last Airbender. My cat's name is Appa, and his middle name is Chomper, Appa Chomp. And so these things have been such a wonderful thing to have while I've been recovering and during like COVID, right? When everyone was locked in and kids need to learn, learn about how the world began, the science, the stuff I got to go and like play with and learn and build houses. My parents, we built a house and like I learned electrical and mechanical engineering and working on cars. And so I love physics because it's all of the stuff. And like studying at Northern Arizona University was it's the best thing for me. And studying about dinosaurs and then traveling all over the world to Saudi Arabia and these different places to learn from all the smartest PhDs in the world on these subjects. Because it's just such a passion of mine, and there's things, and we can change the world, and we can do this financially together as well. There's, if we bond together and buy the right company stocks, for example, those things are going to take off very quickly with artificial intelligence and all of these things becoming a huge factor in an everyday life. I've just started begun using it with my Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, and it's like a lifesaver for me because I can summarize these huge emails that I get, these huge financial emails, and then it will just repeat it to me in an audio
Wow.
tone. And so then I can just really just learn things so quick. I just multitask with all the technology, VR, and all of these things, and the media, and all of it's so important. And I'll explain why. Because there's no, heaven or hell like you might think of it from like religion standpoint. We can construct something like it by obtaining all of the data about every single person that you love and care about so much, and using the VRs and these technologies and loading your how you think and how you work and operate into these systems. These computer systems we could then, maintain with the clean energy stuff I'll talk about as well, so that they run forever is the hope. And then that way, the you could go visit your lost family members, your lost friends inside virtual reality and talk to them again and hear their stories again. And you know what I mean? And that isn't that what heaven is? Shouldn't that be what heaven is for people? Right? I mean, to be able to stay around with the loved ones at the age that you want to be stayed at. You can upload your pictures of that age, right? Isn't that all of the things that we were taught? Because I studied religion as well, and I have family members that love religion, and there was a place for it, explaining things, and like the stories are wonderful, Thor and lightning and all of these things. They're wonderful, wonderful like life lessons that should be taught to our children. But it's also that's a touchy subject. I know, and I understand, but
Hmm.
because of the way I just say what I have to
Well,
say.
you bring
And
up a great point, I believe, in that what is heaven? What do we want out of heaven? If you believe in a heaven, you want connection with your loved ones, knowing that they're okay. So you could maybe, like you're saying, construct a reality to provide that comfort, whether it is heaven or not. It's called VR. Interesting.
multiple dimensions. It's
Multiple.
basically
Yeah.
multiple dimensions, if you want to think of it that way, which is how the universe began. The singularity event called the
Hmm.
Big Bang, was most likely postulated that it's, parallel universe with a supermassive black hole that couldn't sustain itself by
Sure.
ejecting enough antimatter, that then it propagated through space-time, creating a singularity event in a parallel universe.
So take me through your recovery process. We started with the first injury. You had injuries after that, challenges along the way. And we did skim it last time we got together, even down to different medications and all of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk about the insurance industry.
Yes, yes.
I'm sure
Oh
that
gosh.
yeah, that was a challenge. Yeah, take us down that road.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. If you added up my medical bills for my life, it's in the millions of dollars already. Right. And that only gets much more exaggerated over time. And for example, when I hurt my ankle, when I fell off a 50-foot cliff this most recent time in 2020, right before 2023, was actually on December 31st of the year. And in our country, the insurance systems switch on the 1st of January of every year. So when you look at your insurance company, you see that there's something called an out-of-pocket maximum. If you go to the
If
hospital
it
for
resets, it resets.
right, and if you go to the hospital one time, I guarantee you'll hit that out-of-pocket maximum, because medical care is expensive, and you have to train the people that do it so well by the best teachers and professors around the world, or you're not going to get good enough healthcare to live to a very old age.
Hmm.
Which has been one of the main amazing things about our country, and why we have people living so long now, is because we've had amazing healthcare, and that's why it's so expensive. But basically what happened is you get an out-of-pocket maximum one day, and then an out-of-pocket maximum for the whole year the next day. And then on top of that, ambulatory bills are not typically covered in most insurance plans. So they will cover a portion of it, but then you also get all of that paid out as on top as well. So
Wow.
it's very expensive to be hurt, and the medications that you need to take in order to be okay. As well, there's a huge fentanyl problem all over the world because of people that are hurting. A lot of these people are in a lot of chronic pain, and also have mental issues like myself. I love talking to homeless people and different people. I've met them through all my journeys, and some of them are just mentally, and they just didn't get trained. I met a man once that was very, very high IQ, very smart, but went to the Navy when it worked in the Navy and stuff like that, and didn't get taught all the things that I got to do. So he could explain his ideas really well to me, but when I asked him to like write the math out on paper, it, he was like, I can't do that. I don't know how to do all that part of it. Right.
Why not?
Yeah. Because he just was never taught.
Okay. All right. Oh,
Teachers are so important to our children and everything. And I've my grandparents on both my sides of my parents, uh, teachers. My grandpa, who I just saw, he taught electronics at Alkalani's in Lafayette, California. So it's like I've grown up with just my dad's a computer scientist. It's just it just runs in my family. My
wow.
grandpa from my mom's side was the construction genius. He could see like basically the dimensions that needed to be cut out of wood. He had lived on a floating cabin during the summer on a lake in Idaho, like Coeur d'Alene. He grew up riding on behind a jet boat all the time. My dad had one of like 10 in the left in the world called the Starfire. Yeah, it was a wonderful, beautiful boat, like that he restored while I was growing up. So I got to see how all these things
Wow.
were restored and preserved.
That's
Yeah.
probably what got you interested in all of this, because as you are watching your family, your father do all these things, you're finding your love of it. That's right down to, let's talk about, you mentioned before the energy situation in our country. We skimmed over insurance. What about energy? The grid, clean energy,
Yeah.
all of that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah, we're moving in the right direction. It's all happening behind the scenes, It's just not now I'm talking about it, but it's been happening for years behind the scenes with all the major companies that helped build the infrastructure. So you have to remember the United States is the original electric grid in the world, right? So it's not as good as some of these other places around the world, which I've loved to travel and see. And we have problems like things called corona discharge when the wire cracks and it's open to air and like the high main transmission lines because they will create a small plasma. I actually have a patent on my name's on the patent to it invented technology to detect these things so we could send like a helicopter out and put like a coating around it in order to decrease the amount of energy loss. But really, the biggest solution to all of it is to also revamp the entire civil engineering of the country. So all the infrastructure, the bridges, the all of these things, the material science has come a long way. And so in order to make our roads better, to make them safer for these electric cars, to make them safer for all these things that go really fast, and then we could change the speed limits in certain places where there's not a lot of people that live, for example, especially with the automation of how the driving is being automated, right? So those technologies aren't quite ready there yet, but so what we could theoretically do is build the power lines into the roadway system when we rebuild the entire roadway system, or like the big major parts of it, not necessarily all everywhere, right? But like out, especially where the majority of people don't live at first, right? And then use fusion, and then we'll build these hopefully smallish units all over the world eventually that kind of like a fission reactor, but maybe hopefully smaller, but and these fusion and devices, right? And they will power into the concrete through the grid. So then when you drive an electric vehicle, the electric vehicle can be charged while it's driving, and that way we don't have to run all the wires into the houses and like increase all the house. Like if you live in an apartment and and you park your car in a garage down there, they're not going to let you charge it because it
Yes.
draws a lot of power and it wants to. And the fire department will get involved because it's a huge fire hazard, and especially if someone trips on an extension cord that's pulling 15 amps and stuff like that, you need to be monitoring it, right? Because you plug it in and go up to your room, that's a big danger. So if the roadway system was charging our vehicles and also had solar panels and stuff like that built into the roadway, which has been worked on around the world, then all these things can just be charged as we drive along
I
through
know it's a
magnetic
huge
charging.
undertaking. It's a huge
Oh
undertaking.
yeah,
However, what a cool idea. Like the way it should be, because there is contact with the road from the vehicle. You can charge your cell phone on a pad. So imagine if
right,
the pad's the road and the
exactly,
vehicle is the phone.
right.
Wow. Hmm. Yeah. Are they doing that in other countries now?
I'm sure it's been proposed, and there's a lot of like big projects that come out of like Saudi Arabia and like Dubai, and like these ideas of like these huge structures where there's a lot of sun, and like build it out of like solar panels, right? Because of the near field charging of magnetism. It's really important,
So for
right?
you supporting, we talked about startups. How can you support somebody who has a startup, a tech startup? Give us some insight on that.
Wonderful. These things are expensive, right? And you need to hire the best people around the world to work on these problems because they can be dangerous, and you want them to be good, done right, and done in a very smart way and well thought out, right? Because it costs so much money, right? We want it to last for as long as possible, right? So we don't have to keep refixing things all the time, right? And so, like fossil fuels, for example, we tax the fossil fuels, right? And that pays for our roadway, like reconstruction, filling potholes, all of that stuff. So taxes are very important on for certain on in certain aspects and for certain things to pay for these commodities. So we need to use up our natural resources and convert them into clean ways by pyrolysis and high temperature processes and things like that, and material science. These are the solutions to fix the planet. And as history has shown itself, we need to have another ice age. The planet needs to have an ice age to prepare itself.
Now, why do you say
And
that? Is that almost like you think of it in terms of like a reset?
right. It's a huge reset. Yeah, it would help if it somehow happened before the doomsday iceberg. Oh my God, it could help re-solidify that. And yeah, the fresh water, right? There would
Mm.
be an abundance of fresh water all over the place because of the cold temperatures. And that helps agriculture, that helps food growth, like all of the things that the planet and the people that live on it really need and deserve.
It's amazing when you look at the plastic contamination, and I'm talking about the micro-sized plastic particles that are in everything, actually in our bodies right now, probably from the water we drink. I'm talking, minuscule, but they're there. Uh, it's mind-blowing what's going on in terms of pollution. Many of us think, well, they don't talk about pollution so much anymore. No, it's still a big problem, right?
There's ways to convert the plastics. If we can gather them up, we can convert them into fuels and synthetically
Hmm.
fuels and things along those lines. So, you know what I mean? There's energy stored in all molecules, right? So,
Yeah.
so if we can repurpose it in a good way, then we can reuse some of it. Some plastics are really hard to recycle back into other plastics, but there's no reason we can't use them for like an energy source if we can make sure that it produces like a clean carbon footprint on the outside on the outgassing part of the system.
What would you say if you had to pick the number one thing in the world or this country that needs to be addressed immediately? Like a biggest challenge? Would it be energy? What would it be?
It's going to be the presidential election because that's the person who controls all of these things and controls these projects. He controls the military, right? I mean, obviously, with checks and balances with the Senate and the Congress and the judicial branch and everything like this. But he is the one that makes those decisions. So if you want to join the military, for example, you have to really, really like the president that you're going to be serving for because he's going to make the decisions on what you're going to be doing in all, and a trickle down effect, obviously, right? You're not going to meet this person, unless you do something extremely heroic and where you are awarded amazing honors and things like that. My grandpa, he fought in World War II. Wonderful, wonderful people. My grandma, oh my gosh, born on the 4th of July. Just
Oh,
they
wow.
met, they've been married for 70 years. I mean, it's like almost 70 years. Yeah,
Oh my gosh. Good for them. And born on the
I
4th of
know.
July. Wow.
Yeah, and then I'm 7'7", which is a lucky for some cultures. The number seven is lucky, but luck is actually just all probabilities and statistics and things that happen at casinos and things. So you can actually make your own luck. That's what I've been telling people my whole life by working hard.
You think it's about manifestation? Do you believe in that? Where if you think it, it becomes your reality?
Definitely. And with the new advancements in things like ketamine, you can rewire neural connections in your brain because it promotes glutamate and it allows you to have conversations with yourself without emotions involved. And that allows you
Hmm.
to really assess everything that you've been doing and like in your life and things along those lines. And so that those treatments from all this chronic pain are saved my life and really brought my mind back to its full capacity.
Wow. So you would say those medications, and some people take um, psychedelics, hugely
Right.
popular now, microdose, whatever it might be, to get that perspective from within. What do you got? What should I
Right.
see?
That's
Okay.
psychedelics.
Yeah, I see it now.
The stories of Christmas and Santa Claus. They're Norway. They're real stories about these people taking hallucinogenic mushrooms around Christmas time and then being delivered through the chimneys by the religious, the monks of the tribes and things like that.
Yeah. It's
Right.
it's
Yeah.
there. It's been around for centuries. And
Native
I can
Americans and
I know.
DMT comes from
Yes.
bark
Yep.
roots. I made it. Made these substances
I know
because it's so
doctors,
important.
high level doctors that occasionally microdose just for a different experience, trying to get clarity. And they learned it from other doctors. And these are friends who are
Yes,
doctors, and they
it's been
self-treated.
studied by doctors all way long since way old before the 70s, right?
Wow.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Mm. Fascinating talking with you. How does somebody connect? If I mean, we got a lot of deep stuff that we're talking about here, but if somebody
right.
wants to find you, has a question, they can just go to your website.
Yeah, or my Facebook. I'm starting to post all of this on my Facebook. It's Jackson Pleis, my name, and you can find me on Facebook and some Instagram. And I'm posting these podcasts and I'm putting videos together and collecting media that I've had throughout my life that I just haven't posted because of getting frustrated with certain electronics and breaking them, and then having to get buy new ones and all of these
Mm.
crazy kind of things. I just wanted to mention one thing about One Piece too. I'm a lot like this character Sanji, and there was a pudding in the show that has three eyes. So maybe there's a pudding out there for me
Ah,
somewhere.
well, we're out of time, but before we close, I do want to share with you because it resonated very much with me, interestingly, but I don't think there's coincidences. When I was 2 years old, I fell, cracked my head open, and got chicken pox right after that. And if you look right here, right there, that's part of skin cancer surgery. So I got sort of a third eye going on there too.
Oh my
Like, man,
gosh.
it's like
Oh
weird.
my gosh. It's
Yeah.
yes, some of these things are just not coincidence. It's just
Can't make
how
that
we
up.
evolved. How we evolved.
And even
It's
when you were
amazing
talking
of
about the
evolution.
chicken pox, I'm thinking about it, seeing myself in the apartment that my mom lived in at that time with my aunt and my grandmother, and this stuff on me from the chicken pox. Crazy, crazy. Jackson, great having you on. I want to remind everybody, Pleis is Pleis. If you want to find you on Facebook, but your website, share that again with everybody.
Spacewhaletech.com.
Spacewelltech.com. Cool.
Yeah, and I'll
Thanks
put
for
the podcast on there as well when
thanks
I
for
get
being
some
here
time.
today. Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate that, and looking forward next time we get together.
Yes, me too. Thanks,
Thanks.
Steve.
We'll be
Have a
right
wonderful
back.
day.
You too.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's
It's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.